Time is a flat circle. What's going on, everybody? Good Friday morning. We are almost to the end of the week. We got college football tomorrow. We got pro football the next day. And I think we're all at least interested in seeing what the Seahawks cook up for Sunday, because in many ways it is a make or break game. You win that game, suddenly it feels like things are turning around with the return of some key players. Feels like you can actually beat a pretty good team. You can go on the road and beat a quality team. You lose, you're staring at a 4-game losing streak. You are back in a situation where you're not really feeling like you can do anything against a more respectable opponent. So this game, there's a lot that rides on it. You can't go 0-4 in the conference and expect to compete for a wildcard spot. You can't start 0-4 in the NFC, including having several games against likely NFC wildcard contenders, and then expect tiebreakers to go your way at the end of the season. So, a lot at stake here, but we got to look back at last week's game, which I know was forever ago at this point. And we got to talk about the pass rush, and something pretty fascinating happened this week. And something also, unfortunately, familiar happened this week. So we're going to talk about it on both ends. Now, as far as the pass rush goes, if you use PFR, it's actually going to be over real quick here. According to Pro Football Reference, Leonard Williams had 2 pressures and was the only defensive lineman to get pressure. The linebackers had nothing. The edge rushers had 1 pressure from Boye Mafe. 1. Nothing from the cornerbacks. Nothing from the safeties. So the total, according to PFR, is 3 quarterback pressures, which is obviously really bad and very reminiscent of what we saw in some games last year and the year before that. And it's a sharp departure from even the previous 2 games where the defense was bad, but they actually got a respectable number of pressures and were at the very least finding their way into the backfield. So that's the awful part, right? But it's a little bit deeper than that. It's not just awful. It's also, there's something going on here that is kind of funky. So I want to talk about that now real quick, because I have never in my life seen a discrepancy like this. I've seen discrepancies in pass rush stuff, but not like this. So 3 pressures according to PFR, right? You guys might guess where this is going, but if you haven't, yeah, this is the exact same data looked at by different people from Pro Football Focus. According to them, we had 28 pressures in that game. According to them, we had 28 pressures. We had 2 players that had twice as many pressures by themselves as the entire team had, according to PFR. We had a player with 5 pressures. We had a player with 4 pressures. We had a player with 3 pressures. So 5 players had as many pressures as the whole team did, according to PFR, when you look at PFF. So, yeah, make that one make sense, okay? Like, the discrepancies are not hard to find, right? Like, Jaron Reed, according to PFF, not only had pressures, he had a QB hit. And they gave him nothing over on PFR, right? I'm assuming that Mafe's 1 pressure he got on PFR was the QB hit that they gave him on PFF. But it's wild that you have one guy give credit to a player for a hit on a quarterback, and then the other site doesn't even give him credit for the pressure. Leonard Williams gets 5 according to PFF, 2 according to PFR. And here's the really big one. According to PFF, we had 6 Draymond Jones pressures in this game. And then according to PFR, he didn't do anything. So how is this even possible? How can the discrepancy be this big? This feels kind of broken to me, right? Like, discrepancies are okay. Having differences in ranking what you consider to be a pressure or not a pressure is totally understandable, and just a logical effect of having different people look at the same evidence and coming to different conclusions. That happens all the time. But how does PFF give us 28 pressures in a game and PFR give us 3? Like, I understand that PFR is going to be much harsher, but this goes way over the line. So, at best, I guess it's just kind of an amusing anecdote that two sites evaluate things so differently. But it also kind of makes me wonder, where's the truth here and how are they so different? I've often said that Pro Football Reference will often only give pressure if they feel like it materially affected the play. And Pro Football Focus just looks at if there is, by some technical definition, of pressure. Like, I don't know if Pro Football Focus does this, but I know that Next Gen Stats considers it a pressure if there is ever a point in the play where there is no offensive player between the quarterback and the defender, which is that's pretty tough, right? Because you could be 6 yards away from the quarterback, and in theory, you're getting credited for a pressure if you have a straight shot to him, which doesn't seem right to me. But I think that Pro Football Focus is probably using some similar criteria here, because I didn't get the sense that our pass rush was all that good in this game. Now, I don't think it was as bad as what PFR had with the 3. If I had to guess, I would say that the number should be closer to like 6, maybe 7. But when you see a discrepancy this big, I feel like you got to talk about it, and you got to start to wonder, somebody's clearly wrong. Maybe they're both wrong, but at minimum, one of them is wrong, and I'm just wondering which one. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? It's worth talking about, right? Normally, I just mention these discrepancies as kind of an interesting side note, because the discrepancies are significant, but they're not like this. Pro Football Focus would have you believe our pass rush was great against the 49ers, like one of the best pass rushes any team has had in the NFL all season. They just couldn't finish the play with sacks. Pro Football Reference would have you believe that it's atrocious, like one of the worst. And that's the thing that I'm a little hung up on here, right? Because obviously PFF and PFR have different criteria, which is fine, but you should be able to use the data to decide whether or not the pass rush you had in a particular game was good or bad, right? That's just common sense. So if I look at PFF and they say we had 30 pressures in a game, and then PFR says we had 18, both those numbers are telling me the pass rush did great in that game. But when one is telling you they did great and the other's telling you did terrible, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So let me know what you think about all that. But yeah, 3 is the total that we're going to have for this spreadsheet, which puts us still on pace to meet the projection, but no longer by a big margin. So that sets you back a little bit. Got to get back on the right track this week. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.